Hey, sorry for the interruption. I feel a little bit like the stage manager in the play Our Town, or Ilona Holmes in the recent miniseries that's very popular. You know, when somebody breaks character and steps out and starts talking to you right in the middle of a beautiful story. We've been listening to this incredible narrative of the redemption of the world in word and song, and now we have a sermon. We have a sermon because it's required in Lessons and Carols, when Lessons and Carols is the primary feast, and it's Christmas Eve, our primary feast. I don't know, sometimes I wonder if it's just here to give clergy a little something to do. Or maybe it's just an opportunity to briefly stop and reflect on what we're listening to. You know, we're home, we're comfortable, maybe a little dozy, maybe we miss some of the pattern. So real quickly, let's look and see if we can point out the pattern. It starts with the creation story, and the part that we got tonight is really the fall story. And we see our great-great-great-great-grandparents, Adam and Eve, created in God's image, and yet filled with fear and anxiety and sin. And we realize that that's kind of part of our family story, isn't it? Kind of like you might do with a family on Christmas when we look at a kid and say, oh, you're just like your great-great-grandpa Adam. You're just like your grandma Eve. But you might also say, oh, you're just like your grandpa Adam. Just like your grandma Eve. We see that imprint. And then we begin going through the rest of the narrative very quickly. We go to Isaiah when the Hebrew people have found themselves completely at odds. They're lost, they're alone, they're in captivity, and they need to be rescued. And God promises that God will come to the rescue. And we can see in those Hebrew people the created in the image of God part, and also the fearful and the scared and the uncertain and sinful part. And then we move into most of the Christmas narratives. We just heard almost all of the stories in the gospel that speak to the birth of Jesus. And we see the angel come and speak to Mary. And we see the image of God, and we see a scared little girl imprinted. And then we see them talking to Elizabeth, who's an old lady who's going to have a baby. We see the image of God and a scared old woman. And we see chatty Zechariah, who wouldn't stop arguing with God long enough till finally God just struck him mute to get him to be quiet so that he could see what God is doing. We see the naming of John the Baptist. We see the image of God and a baffled group of people at the same time. All of this leading up to that birth story where Jesus, born in a field in a manger with shepherds around, the very image of God, surrounded by fear and uncertainty and a scared young couple having to give birth in a barn. Now, I don't want to give away everything that's coming next, but I think it's important. I want you to wake up a little bit, maybe get off the couch and listen carefully to the next lesson, because the next lesson is out of Hebrews. And Hebrews is written after the birth, death, crucifixion, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And the writer of Hebrews is trying to give us an image of who Jesus is. And he uses this phrase. He is the very imprint, the perfect imprint of the Father. Isn't that a powerful image? That when we see Jesus, when we see our brother Jesus, we see God. When we hear Jesus teach, we are hearing the teachings of God. When we see Jesus heal and minister to people, we are seeing the healing touch of God. And when we see Jesus invite people into fidelity and love and compassion, we see the fidelity and love and compassion of God. And here's the thing. We say when we're baptized that we are baptized with Jesus in his death, and we're raised with Jesus in his life. Therefore, we are imprinted with the Spirit of Jesus. So just like we are so much like our grands, Adam and Eve, created in the image of God, and also Adam and Eve, so we are like our brother Jesus. So when we begin to listen to Jesus and start to do the things that Jesus did, that is the very imprint of God in our lives. When we begin to reach out in love and compassion and service to others as Jesus did, that's the very imprint of the image of God. It's really quite amazing. So again, sorry for the interruption. Listen carefully. Let's see what happens next. Oh, Merry Christmas.